interest in Trump from a business perspective, that he has business experience like no other candidate has recently.
No question.
But that's not the only job of the president. They also have to be the face of the nation. They have to go out and meet other leaders, and they have to be a diplomat in a sense. So,
do you think that a guy who's built a 80-story hotel in another country has not been a diplomat?
The things he's saying right now are diplomatic.
I'm not sure they're not. I'm not sure they're not. I think they're very diplomatic. I think saying that what we need to do is close the borders to people we can't vet is about the most diplomatic thing you can say.
How is that?
How is that diplomatic? He's not talking to Thailand. He's talking to Americans. He's talking about protecting Americans. If that's not diplomatic, I don't know what is. And he's talking to Mexico, saying, "Don't send me your rapists. Don't send me your dope." That's diplomatic. It's not mealy-mouthed. It's not blah, 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 blah. It's saying it exactly the way it is, and that's the value of this man.
But I think when you think of like a diplomatic president, you think of someone who
kisses ass.
Well,
okay.
The rest of the world.
We don't care. Look, you don't care. You don't gain friends and gain respect by not saying things that you mean. Okay, you don't gain respect by giving people money. You don't gain respect by sending $150 billion to a country that says death to Americans. That's not diplomatic. That's imbecilic. Now, what you say is not, you don't think is diplomatic, I say is the most diplomatic thing a guy could possibly be.
It sounds like you're okay if Trump is elected and America turns inward and engages less with the rest of the world.
I don't think that's the case at all. I think that when you say turn inward, protect your borders, is that turning inward? When you say don't send $150 billion to a country who says death to America, I don't think that's turning inward. I think that's basic common sense. And that, even though he says it in a rough way, everything he says is basic common sense. And that's what is attracting the lady who has to do a budget for her own household. That's attracting to the guy who rolls under the car with a wrench so he can pay his rent and his bill that month. How ignorant can this country continue to be when they're going $19 trillion in debt? When they're doing things, when they're borrowing money. We borrowed money from China and then gave China $90 billion in foreign aid. Duh. I mean, is that asinine? That's what we're dealing with in this country when we deal with a big government where one hand doesn't know what the other hand's doing. Too many people, too much inattention. You just can't. We can't go on the way we're going on. Okay. Like I said, if she gets elected, I will turn inside and take care of my own family. Do that one thing that I said, and that's try to get the vote declared to be a felony. The voter fraud declared to be a felony. That's my main impetus. If we don't have a government who's taking care of business.
And if Hillary Clinton does win, do you think it would be because of voter fraud?
No, I think but one vote that's not fair is one too many. But 10 is 10 too many. 10,000.
But it sounds like you will respect that the vote is fair
up until this country absolutely violates the tenets of the Constitution, I'll respect it. Okay? If right now we're buying, all the Democrats are doing with the immigration is buying votes by allowing people to roar into this country and then giving them welfare, giving them things. They're buying votes is all they're doing. That's not a tenet of our Constitution. There's nothing in our Constitution that says we have to take one Buddhist, one Muslim, one anybody into this country. It's not in the Constitution. And when the Democrats say that's against the Constitution, they're totally full of horse crap. It's not in the Constitution.
Do you support Trump's idea to ban, what he said at one point, to ban all Muslims altogether?
He said immediately after that, if he did say that, and I'm not sure he did, but he said immediately that we need to vet people. If we have a country like Iran that says death to America, if we have a country like Yemen who says all the things that they say, should we let them freely flow into this country? Just watching 60 Minutes, they said, they're talking about the immigrants. Well, they're vetted 3 different times. They're interviewed 3 different times. And if they don't say the same thing all 3 times, a guy who knows how to build a bomb is smart enough to say the same thing 3 different times. It's imbecilic, again. Moralic. I'm sorry if I wasn't enthusiastic enough.
Yeah, you're very outspoken American, and yes, thank you so much.
I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Really enjoyed it. Yeah. Do you have anything to add? I'm sorry, I missed this question. I think what do you think if Trump presidency? What do you think will affect Asia as a whole?
Oh, I don't think it, other than his trade policies, and those will even out. If he imposes tariffs, it'll have an immediate effect on the economy in one way or another. If it has a negative effect, the guy's pretty smart. He'll say, "Hey, this is wrong. Okay, let's not do it that way." I think China will walk on more eggshells than they have as far as what they've been able to impose upon that part of the world. I don't think they're going to try to build too many new islands, and they might be a little more careful because we had a guy by the name of Teddy Roosevelt in the turn of the last century who was pretty outspoken. People were a little bit afraid of him. It's okay. As long as you don't do things foolishly, it's okay. But you do need to respond. You do need to, if we have a Benghazi and if a bunch of people run into our embassy and kill our ambassador and 3 more guys, you need to take care of that business. And you don't do it by not responding. Okay? You don't gain respect. I was a 145-pound guy in high school. I learned right away if the 200-pound guy sassed me and I busted his nose with the first punch, I got more respect. I didn't get attacked by any more 200-pound guys right away. Okay? You have to respond. I mean, it's just basic human nature. You don't take advantage of the United States has the capabilities. I am astonished by the fact that Hillary right now acts as if she doesn't give a hoot if we get in a war with Russia. This is an insane approach to diplomacy right now. She complains because Trump has a dialogue of sorts with Putin. Why not have a dialogue? I mean, you don't avoid things by not talking. Okay, so I think internationally, giving away, like I say, giving away money is not the way you make friends. Okay, so foreign aid without a reciprocal, something happening reciprocally is not, it's not the way things work. I mean, people don't respect you, and if we don't respect each other, all across this world, there's something, we're doing something wrong.
You think Trump will be more militarily involved in the rest of the world?
I think he'd be less. I think he'll be less. I think he's, but I think when he does respond, he won't. It won't be mealy mouthed. Okay, the biggest country, the biggest mistake this country ever made was Korea. Okay, you don't get involved in a police action. Following that, Vietnam, imbecilic. Okay, absolutely crazy. And then to have a president like Lyndon Johnson who says they're building a SAM installation over here. It's reported, we've seen it, we know where it is, but we're not going to attack it because there's maybe a Russian advisor there. When they're finished building it and they can fire at our airplanes, I lost a good friend, I'm adamant about this, and they can fire at us, then we'll attack it. Again, moronic. Lyndon Johnson, as far as I'm concerned, was the biggest traitor this country ever had because of Vietnam and because of his actions there. We shouldn't have been there in the first place. If we're going to be there, we got to be there to win. You don't get in a street fight and let the guy have the first 3 punches. Just not smart. I mean, we lost 50,000 young Americans in Vietnam, and we shouldn't have been there in the first place. We shouldn't have been in Iran and Iraq, obviously. In Iraq, and we had I had a son there, 7th Platoon into Desert Storm, and they didn't finish the job. As far as I'm concerned, when we were there, when we had them on the ropes, we should have divided that country into Kurd, Sunni, and Shia, and put the oil fields under the control of the United Nations and given them the money after it was done, and maybe we wouldn't be in the situation we're in there today. But that's just me. If we're I King.
Yeah, actually, I've always wanted to ask this question because I actually wrote my dissertation about the Vietnam War.
Did you really?
Yes.
Interesting.
I basically sort of wrote about this, the role of the Vietnamese women in the war. Yeah,
and they took very active part.
Question to the American that what do you think if one of the top head commander, if you were the top head commander, what you would have changed if you could turn back time? Would you still go into Vietnam and fight?
No, I would have supplied the South Vietnamese with anything that we could have, short of nuclear weapons, and said, "Good luck, fellas."
Right.
Okay, I mean, we did a lot of things. My brother was offered. He flew an F-8Us off the Ranger. That's one of the attack jets. Prior to Vietnam, he got out just before Vietnam started. They offered my brother $3,500 a month to fly AT-6s, which was a prop plane, into Cambodia, where we weren't. We weren't in Cambodia, right? But my brother was offered by Air America, which was the CIA. He turned it down because it was all the money in the world. I mean, at that time, $500 a month was a good wage. Okay, he turned it down because they didn't have helicopters to take the people back out. Not for any altruistic reason, but it was just too damn dangerous to do. But we did so many things over there. I am so sick of our government lying to us And I don't mean not telling us the secrets of the country that would impair somebody's life if you knew them, but telling us that well, there is no inflation when they don't compute the cost of food and fuel in inflation. I mean, it's a lie. It's a lie, and that's just one of the many, many, many lies our government tells us. That's one of the primary things. I think Trump would straighten that out. I don't think he'd say, "What do you mean we don't have any inflation when the cost of food has gone up by 50% in the last 5 years? We got inflation. Why aren't you telling the American people that?" I think he has far more respect for the American people than most politicians do. Another reason I support him in a big way. I'm glad I wasn't a Vietnamese lady in there in the middle of that war.
Yes, so thank you so much.
My